Good day, my name is Lakshya. Welcome to Behl's Business Broadcast. Today we are going to start with discussing the big news of the day. Quantitative easing has begun and Federal Reserve has cut rates once again. This happened yesterday and we'll talk today about how to use this information to scale your business. Let me remind you, if you are a new viewer, that Behl's Business Broadcast is for business owners who already have found a product market fit and already have gone through the hustle phase of growing their business to a certain level. Now you have at least $1 million to $5 million in top line, or maybe even more, and now are looking at breaking through the glass ceiling that you might be experiencing right now. So we're going to look at the market conditions today, how that affects your customers, and how that should help you decide how to position your business going forward in order to scale from where you are to the next level and then all the way to TAM levels, the total addressable market levels. So let's get started with some news items, top news items presented by Perplexity. I use Perplexity for news because it actually compiles news from a whole lot of different sources, and that helps us get sort of an unbiased look and a non-political look at what's going on and is relevant to our content and relevant to your business. So let's get started. As I always keep saying, AI onslaught continues, and this is one more news that validates that particular idea, that AI fitness coaches are now gaining traction and the market is racing towards $35 billion level. If that's unclear, if none of that makes sense, the simple thing to take away home, the simple takeaway is that AI onslaught will continue and markets are beginning to get larger, new markets continue to get emerge, new markets continue to emerge and expand at breakthrough velocity. It's the same thing that happened with Bitcoin 10 years ago. It's the same thing that happened with the internet 25 years ago. And we are seeing the same thing happen with AI today. If you're not taking advantage of it, let's just say you're doing the opposite of a moat for your business. And we're going to see this recurring theme throughout the various news items that we look at today. Now, Fed cuts have happened. Federal Reserve has cut rates, but Powell has warned job growth may be negative. Job growth may be negative. This is also being impacted by AI. And we'll talk about the right way to use AI and the wrong way to use AI. As the recent Coke advertising campaign for Christmas of 2025 demonstrates, that blindly using AI is not going to help your business at all, whether you're a small business or a mega corporation like Coca-Cola. The AI as a tool narrative is sound, but using AI to do everything end to end, it's not quite feasible right now, and we'll talk about that. However, let's look at the Federal Reserve news that they've cut rates by 25 basis points again on Wednesday, bringing its benchmark rate to a 3.5 to 3.75% in a move that sparked rally on Wall Street, despite revealing stark concerns about the true health of the U.S. labor market. Now, the U.S. labor market is struggling, as we have predicted with AI. I don't have a crystal ball. Nobody has a crystal ball, but it looks like AI is going to cut a lot of jobs. Jerome Powell disclosed during a post-meeting press conference that official employment statistics may be drastically overstating job growth by approximately 60,000 positions per month. And I always keep telling you that experts and official statistics are not always reliable. Look around yourself to notice a trend. The exact numbers are misleading. What is not misleading are trends. Job creation may be negative. He's saying people are actually losing more jobs than jobs are being created. Powell stated, suggesting that reported gains of around 40,000 jobs monthly could actually be representing losses of 20,000 jobs when adjusted for what he called a systemic overcount. The revelation became a pivotal factor in the rate cut decision, which came despite internal divisions that produced the Fed's first triple descent since September of 2019. So we are also looking at descent in terms of how experts are perceiving everything. This is again in line with you not having to trust, or you shouldn't trust experts, because experts can't even agree with each other. It reminds me of that old Penn and Teller episode where they go to Feng Shui experts, and every single expert, highly paid expert, had different sets of opinions and advice and counseling about how to structure their home to be compliant with Feng Shui, when they were all supposedly experts on the same thing. Well, economics seem to be in the same boat right now, with economists, the top economists of the country, of the world, just not agreeing with each other, and we are seeing unmitigated levels of disagreement between experts. What that tells you is it's really up to you. You cannot really trust experts. If experts knew anything truly over the long term, if they really had some sort of a simulation of a crystal ball, they would be able to give us at least consistent reports, and we don't see that now. We see that experts cannot even have consensus among each other. While they respect each other's opinions, they have a lack of consensus in terms of how they interpret the numbers that they're looking at. So, regional Fed presidents Jeffrey Schmidt and Austin Goolsbee argued rates should remain unchanged. The 9-3 vote exposed deepening fractures within the Federal Open Market Committee, FOMC, over how to balance persistent inflation against labor market weaknesses. And I have to remind you that I keep telling you, inflation is a one-way street. It doesn't go down. Okay, inflation itself can go down, but it's a second-order thing, right? This is inflation versus time. Inflation can go up and go down and go up and go down, but the prices, these are the prices, okay? Prices always go up. Sometimes they go up fast, sometimes they go up slow, but they never come down. They go up and up and up. Prices always go up. When inflation is low, prices go up slowly. That's it. That's the correlation right there. When the inflation is low, prices are not going up that fast. That's all it means. For prices to go down, you would need deflation, the opposite of inflation, or negative inflation, which no economist in their right mind wants in 2025. Now, why that is a political discussion. Why that is a very controversial discussion, which we shouldn't really have right now. What we really need to concern ourselves with business owners, as business owners, is that prices are not coming down and your customers are losing jobs. So there are ways to mitigate the counter effects of that, or the downstream effects of that you should be looking at. But let's keep going with the news and look at what else is happening. So when you have these price cuts, you have market rallies. And Fed signals caution on future cuts. Now, Federal Reserve has said in the previous meeting, in October meeting, they said that the December meeting having rate cuts is not going to be a foregone conclusion. Now, they still ended up having rate cuts, but they're still saying that we are not necessarily going to have rate cuts forever. This actually shows you how Federal Reserve actually looks at and controls the market. So this is WallCL. Balance sheet, the federal balance sheet, which has been literally plummeting for, well, several years now, right? It started plummeting in March of 2022, and since then, we've seen the federal balance sheet plummet. At the same time, SPX has made several new all-time highs. Nvidia broke through the $5 trillion mark on market cap, and that is just something to keep in mind, that Federal Reserve has not really been buying assets, not really been inflating their balance sheet, and that affects how markets go. Right now we have risk off markets. However, you can also see this graph is slowing down. The rate of descent is slowing down, and Federal Reserve is now beginning to buy assets. Not great large big quantities of assets, but they're beginning to buy assets. So we are hoping for a minima here. I'm personally hoping for a minima here, but I'm prepared for both scenarios. Whether it goes up or goes down, I'm prepared for it, and you should be too. What you should know is, if rate cuts and federal balance sheet expansion continue, you're going to have a gravy season, like a gravy train, a party season, where people have more money than they know what to use it for, and inevitably a lot of people will end up spending that money, and hopefully they'll be spending it with your business, on your product, services, and offers. And that's what we are talking about. That's what we continue to talk about. So let's keep going. AI startup Serval hits $1 billion valuation in Sequoia-led round. I just want to show you all these different pieces of news that end up becoming top news of the day or the week, because they just indicate the same thing. We have a gold rush in the AI market right now. The individual startups, the individual companies, the individual corporations don't matter. It's the Wild West. We're going to have few conglomerates that end up consolidating the market, that end up becoming the top 3, top 5, whatever, of the AI market. But we are far from it right now. Right now we have giant companies like OpenAI that have hundreds of billions of dollars in infrastructure. But this is still early stage AI. AI is the next gold rush. Whether you capitalize on it or not, it's the next gold rush. Again, another piece of news, and everyone who's looking at the future and has had the same conclusion that I've made is making investments into the AI market. So Deliverect is launching an AI agent library for restaurants. Where's AI not being used right now? Music production? Yes. Surgeries? Yes. Medicine? Yes. Coding? Yes. Art? Yes. Is it doing a great job? Not necessarily. In some cases, yes. In some cases, not so much. Right now, AI exists not as a standalone tool, but as a complement to other tools, to human workflows. Essentially, using AI in 2025 or early 2026 is like buying a tractor instead of trying to plant seeds with your hands into the soil. You get 50 to 100x boost in your productivity, and one man can do the job of 20 to 50 people. And that is where we are headed with AI. Can AI work all by itself right now? Not necessarily. Can it work on small projects that eliminate the need for junior devs, for instance, in a corporation? Yes. Or junior animators? Yes. Can it do an entire pipeline from beginning to end? Not right now. In fact, I want to show you something. Coca-Cola ad, AI, with AI. And this is something that is very funny. I want you to have a listen right now. Now, in case it's unclear, this ad was created entirely using AI, and people are not so happy about it. First of all, I have to point out the irony here when they're saying real magic and using AI to generate content. That's just hilarious. That's just ironic. But look at the comments here. I want to show you the comments underneath this video if I can find them. Right here. So look at the top comments here. Look at the top comment. The unintended irony of using real magic as the tagline is hilarious when you're using AI. And nothing says Christmas quite like Dad got fired because AI replaced him to do the animation. The most profitable commercial in Pepsi's history. Not This is so dystopian. A massive corporation making an AI commercial to sell their sugar water, generating wild animals being excited while real ecosystems dwindle due to the water usage, and real artists are stripped of their dignity. So people are not very happy about AI. However, this goes on to show you a few things. First of all, AI is definitely not good enough. The number of axles on those trucks constantly changed from one frame to another. Thankfully not within the same frame, but they kept changing from one scene or one shot to the next. So that was hilarious that they couldn't even find the right way to use AI when they were using it. But the more important thing is a company like Coca-Cola, for which spending a few $1 million on a commercial for Christmas would have resulted in billions of dollars of sales, potentially hundreds of millions of dollars at least, maybe if not billions, right? They ended up using AI instead of paying an agency to shoot their commercial for them, or even using expert animators to program that for them, do the animation for them. So AI is coming and it's taking jobs, whether you like it or not, whether your business takes advantage of it or not. It's coming, it's gonna happen. There's nothing you can do to stop it. Okay? And people really hate AI generated content, so you have to be careful while you're using it. At the same time, there's a right way of using it. In fact, there was another Coca-Cola ad, I think from 2024 or 2023, where they also used AI and people loved it. They said, well, at least it's a human being making decisions related to when AI is to be used and how AI is to be used. And you have creative vision coming from human beings, and the purpose of the ad is clear from beginning to the end. It's the one where someone's sitting in an art gallery and just animations go on about different art pieces, sharing a bottle of Coke with that person. So that was a uniquely excellent ad. Actually, we can look at that. That was the say art gallery commercial. Oh yeah, that's the one. So this one came out 2 years ago. Look at that. Clearly, real human beings are used here. People are actually modeling in this ad, even though the frame seems to be AI and you can tell it's CGI. People are being used here, and there's a creative vision here. I'm going to quickly go through this ad. We're not going to waste 2 minutes looking at the entire ad. You see that? That's AI. That's AI being used, or CGI being used, technology being used to animate an art piece. That's a great use of it. The concept is that the guy is bored and all these paintings look at him being bored, and then they get him a bottle of Coke in a very funny manner. So let me just show you how that works. So they're sneaking him a bottle of Coke, which he then has, and then he gets refreshed, and essentially and his manager or his boss looks at him approvingly. And this is before they actually relied on AI from beginning to end to do the whole conception and ideation and production of the video. This is AI being used as a tool as opposed to AI being given reins of everything. And you can see the comments on this are probably going to be very positive as well. This wasn't made by AI, it was made by humans using AI, so I can feel the feelings of the person who made this ad. The point remains, people hate the output when it's bad, and right now AI generated output from beginning to end is going to be bad. But if you use AI as a tool, people still like it. You can still understand, instead of taking 1,000 people or $1 million budget or multi-million-dollar budget for this ad, they probably had a few $1,000 budget, right? The budget was significantly smaller. You had a significantly smaller team being used in order to generate the content for this ad. A lot of this content is generated, a lot of this is animated, and that took a smaller team than a regular commercial would have taken for this size and scope. And yet what we have here is people praising that. So if you use AI well, people are not going to be against it. AI cannot do things greatly right now, it's getting better. And finally, the most important part is, if you're not using it, others are not going to wait for you, they're going to use it. Okay, let's keep going then. Here's another one. Retinal scan predicts heart disease risk with AI. Medicine, right? Now AI can just look at your retinal scan and predict whether you're going to have a heart disease or not, and the accuracy, you know, we're going to find out that the accuracy number is wherever it is, and then eventually over time it's going to get better. It's just inevitable. Let's keep going. Okay, now this is what I predicted over the last few streams. In fact, in one of the streams I said, if you're looking to buy a house but you haven't bought it yet, if you're not in a rush, now is a great time to go ahead and wait on that. Why? The supply is piling up, the inventory is building up. Buyers are not able to buy it. Sellers are in no rush to sell it because they've logged in generationally low rates from 2020 to 2021, right? They're not going to be able to get the same rates again. Sellers are unwilling to come down. Buyers are not really buying because they cannot really afford the kind of houses they want. The interest rates are still pretty high. And even though mortgage experts were telling you to go ahead and just log that in, now we are finally beginning to see that prices are coming down again after 2 years, and this is what happens when you have a massive amount of supply but not enough demand for it. Eventually someone has to give, and if it's a buyer's market, which it is becoming right now, it's becoming the buyer's market. If you're a buyer, it's your market, and it's going to be more lopsided in your favor if you can just wait it out for a few more months. And that is what we are seeing. Let's read what it says. The downturn follows a period where mortgage rates soared from 3.9% in March 2022 to above 7% in June 2023. That's literally doubling of interest rates in a year, essentially, creating an affordability crisis that has pushed many potential buyers to the sidelines. Now remember, as a buyer, your competition is also your competition pool. The pool of competitors is also getting smaller. Why? Well, people are losing jobs. You can attribute it to AI or bad economy or inflation, which Mr. Trump keeps telling us that it's a hoax, but inflation and price rises and affordability crisis, these are not hoaxes. We are feeling it every day. You're feeling it every day. Rich people are feeling it. Not so rich people are feeling it. Middle class are feeling it. Everyone's feeling the affordability crisis. The only people who are insulated from it are people like yourselves. People who are business owners, have massive investment portfolios, 7, 8, 9, 10 figure investment portfolios, and 7, 8, 9, 10 figure businesses. Those are the only people who are not really feeling it. And even they're feeling it because their business is feeling it. Why is their business feeling it? Because they've got customers who are feeling it, right? Who are feeling prices. So we are looking at price reduction, but regional divide has deepened. So the national average masks stark regional differences. Austin, Texas, leads price declines at 10% year over year, while Denver fell 5%. And Miami and Houston dropped 4%. Atlanta, Phoenix declined 3%. Cleveland saw a 6% increase. Now, demographics are still destiny. So if a lot of people are moving into an area or a region, you're going to see price increases there. But overall, the trend is downwards. And people are expecting a flat market ahead. I don't think that's going to happen. We are looking at an era where there's a chance that we're going to have quantitative easing, which means lots of money, and lower interest rates, so higher demand from the buyers. While it's still going to be a buyer's market for a while, because the number of buyers is going to continue to get small as affordability crisis continues to skyrocket. Remember, inflation right here, it's a one-way street. The prices always go up unless you have negative inflation. So we're going to continue to see that over the next few years. Let's see how it plays out. However, it pays when you are someone who has optionality, and right now buyers have the optionality in the real estate market. And this is also going to be accelerated by the lack of population growth or decline in population growth rates. Now, it's not an immediate thing, but over time, if population curves stabilize, or if you don't have a population pyramid and there are not you don't have replacement level of total fertility, right? Total fertility rate remains below replacement levels, then over time, over the long term, real estate outlook has got to be negative. Now, of course, local exceptions will exist. Property prices in Monaco, for instance, will probably continue to go up because it's a small piece of land and everyone wants in because of the zero taxes, and it's still very expensive. It's going to continue to get more expensive. But at the end of the day, you have competing forces here. And in general, if you're a buyer, it's time for you to still continue to hold on if you can and make offers, make offers that sound stupid in principle. Who knows, someone might accept it. A seller might be desperate enough to accept it. Remember, in business, in all kinds of business, especially when you're making deals, volume is your friend. Optionality is your friend. Moving on. Bitcoin retreats as Fed signals slower pace of rate cuts. So Bitcoin is essentially now tied to Federal Reserve's announcements, and altcoins remain decimated as retail interest in altcoins continues to be at an all-time low. Retail is not looking into altcoins. Why? They're losing jobs. Things are more expensive. So what are they going to do? Buy altcoins? Buy fartcoin? That's not gonna happen. That only happens when retail has money, and that might be coming with stimulus checks, with lower interest rates, with incentives to get money into people's hands, and that is always the inevitable political solution. But we don't know when that happens. The only thing you can control as a business owner is that whenever that happens, your offers are ready, your products are ready, your inventory is ready, your supply chain is ready, your systems are ready. Remember, if you get 10 times as many orders as you're getting today, you're not going to be able to spend 10 times as much time or effort on your business. So you have to have systems. You cannot rely on hustle. Hustle's okay when you're trying to find a product market fit, because you have to do a lot of testing. You have to test a lot of hypotheses, right? And you have to do it cheaply, and you have to do it quickly, and you have to compress your learning curves, and you have to do it all before your runway expires. So you have to do it cheap, fast, and iteratively learn from your mistakes. It's not even mistakes. You're just testing hypotheses, and there's nothing you can do if someone doesn't want a product. If there's not a market for a product, you can't really do anything about it. All you can do is find something else or position your product in a different way to sell to a different audience. That's all you can do. But once you've had that, that's it. Once you have the product market fit, it's no longer time to hustle. Your best bet going forward is actually using systems to take care of higher volumes, because if you're at the 3 million, 5 million, 10 million, 15 million, $20 million level, and you're feeling that glass ceiling, no matter how hard you work, you cannot scale, which happens every single day. Everyone finds a glass ceiling eventually, and that is way lower than their TAM level, than their total addressable market level. And the reason why they find it is because they're relying too much on hustle. They're relying too much on themselves when they should be relying on systems to take care of their problems. So hustle is overrated once you are beyond a certain threshold. I say, I usually tell people, if you're making $500,000 a year in top line, just revenues, then it's time to stop thinking about working harder, and it's time to start thinking about eliminating work. Let me say that again. Once you have product market fit, you should stop thinking about hustling. You should start thinking about focusing on things that truly matter, the things that we keep talking about on our live stream, the 80-20 and the compounded effect of 80-20. So you understand 20% generates 80% of the returns, and then you can compound that. So 4%, just 4% of your hours generate 64% of your returns, and then 0.8% of your hours generate 51.2% of your returns. That's a 64 times leverage on your time, 64x leverage. So instead of spending 64 hours a week, let's say you're spending 64 hours a week, which is typical for a lot of business owners who are in the hustle mode, who are still in the hustle mode, even though they shouldn't be. You could be spending less than 1 hour a week and getting pretty much the same returns. You could be spending 3 to 4 hours a week and basically compromising nothing. You could be getting 80% or even 100% of the returns if you do it correctly, if you identify the things to do and identify the things to eliminate. The things to eliminate are the bottom 1%. So the other way is also true, right? The other side of this is also true. The bottom 1% of the clients cause most problems, support issues, right? Bottom 1% of your leads are least converting. So if you're trying to convert all your leads, that's going to be a waste of time. You got to let go of the bottom 1% at least, ideally even the bottom 4% or 20% of your leads, because they're the ones causing problems. The bottom 1% of your employees are causing problems. If you have any, if you have contractors, the bottom 1% are causing most of the problems. Always eliminate the problem sources, that concentric or the concentrated problem sources. They are at the bottom. And then always focus your attention and your energy on the top 0.8% of your activities, and they are always going to be about two things. One, debottlenecking. Figuring out what's holding you back right now. And it's going to be very different for everyone at every point of time. If you have a $3 million business and your friend has a $3 million business and you're both stuck, chances are that you both need to debottleneck something. However, you both have different issues that are holding you back, or different causes of those glass ceilings that you're both experiencing. You're going to have to debottleneck your problems individually and separately, even though it looks like you're both stuck in a similar boat. And secondly, the most important thing is disproportionate effort. So disproportionate effort on the top 1% activities, on the top 1% clients, on the top 1% leads, on the top 1% products and offers that you have. Disproportionate effort on the small hinges that swing the biggest of doors. No matter how big a door is, the hinges that swing it are pretty small. And you want to focus on the 64x leverage points within your business. They do exist. It's up to you to identify those and to continue to profit from those. Okay, so Bitcoin now, like I said, has become a factor of Federal Reserve's moves, essentially. If the Federal Reserve is doing a lot of liquidity, handing a lot of liquidity, pumping a lot of liquidity into the market in one way, shape, or form, then Bitcoin performs well. If they're not, Bitcoin doesn't perform so well. And Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency that performs well over the long term. Now, you might point out to Ethereum, Solana, Binance, and a whole bunch of other coins that have done 100x, 1000x, or 2000x. But remember, as I always say, all altcoins eventually tend to zero against Bitcoin. This is the curve of any altcoin against Bitcoin. Let me show you. This is the curve of any altcoin against Bitcoin. Quantitative easing, tightening, easing, tightening, easing, tightening. This is any altcoin versus Bitcoin over the years. Okay? They never achieved their previous all-time high. This is their all-time high achieved once and once only, and then the next local high is lower than the previous all-time high. Remember, we're talking about alt compared to BTC, not alt versus ETH or alt versus USD, right? Alt versus USD or any fiat currency is probably going to look better because it looks probably like this, you know, it goes up. But against BTC, no altcoin holds its performance over the long term. And if Bitcoin is now subject to speculation with respect to market moves or Federal Reserve moves, well, it stands to reason that altcoins are going to fare even worse, because altcoins really only pump when you have a bunch of macro conditions aligned in such a way that they form tailwinds for the altcoins in question. And here's another piece of news that validates our worldview that we keep talking about in the various Behl's business broadcast streams. World's richest 0.001%. That's 1 in 100,000 people. That's 1 in 100,000 people, right? 0.001% own triple the wealth of bottom half. We keep talking about a K-shaped economy and the death of the middle class. We keep talking about that, a K-shaped economy, right? Rich people are getting richer right here. And the people who don't belong to this curve, the top 5% or even the top 1%, who knows, right, are in this curve right now where their wealth objectively is going down in absolute terms and not in USD terms. USD itself is a fiat asset. You cannot really benchmark against USD. If you're going to benchmark your wealth or any wealth at all, you got to benchmark it against maybe SPX, maybe BTC, maybe real estate prices in your economy, maybe gold prices, okay? Those are significantly harder assets to benchmark against than USD, which is a fiat asset which is constantly dwindling in value. If it were a coin, you would call it a shit coin. If USD was a coin, you would call it a shit coin. The reason why is because it keeps losing value over time. You buy less with a $100 bill today than you did 10 years ago. You bought less with a $100 bill 10 years ago than you did 50 years ago, clearly, right? So that's where we are. The richest people are now going to own more wealth than the bottom half. Triple the wealth of the bottom half. That's just insane. And it's going to continue to get worse because that's how free markets work. You have the power law on one side working in someone's favor, and you have the power law or the forces of compounding working against other people. Power law essentially doesn't just work as a force of compounding, it also works by giving advantage to the people who already have the advantage. How? Let's take an example. It's a very simple example. Let's say there are two guys. One guy has got $200 million in SPX. The other guy has got $200,000 in SPX. One guy, he can take out just 1% of his portfolio growth, of his portfolio every year, and have his portfolio grow forever to billions of dollars over decades. The other guy, he can take out the entire growth and still would not even be able to make a part-time income from his SPX portfolio. Even though the rewards or the returns on SPX are exactly the same for both of them, the way their principal compounds is different because of different withdrawal requirements. And that is why power law is always applicable. You never really have a logarithmic curve, or you never really have equal participation. You always have a higher participation from people who need less, and that is why you're gonna have this inequality continue to get worse. There's nothing you can do about it. You can position your business, though, to be able to sell the people who are at the very top. Can you do that? Yes. Should you do that? Yes. Are you going to do that? That's up to you. Why should you do that? Well, the reason why you should do that is because here are the 6 ways to grow a business, okay? Get more leads, but this is the most commodified aspect of business. Believe it or not, traffic is just a commodity. Everyone's bidding for it. It's a free-for-all. You can get traffic in the same market that I'm buying traffic in. It's an auction. Especially with online traffic, it's always an auction. You can always get more traffic. The problem is, how many of the people who go to your website or to your app actually convert? When they do convert, how much money do they spend with you? When they spend money with you, how much of that is actual margin? Because let's say you spent $100 to acquire a customer who spent $200 on your website. Sounds great in principle, except your margin on that $200 sale was just 20 bucks, just 10%. Well, you actually lost money on that transaction, didn't you? So you're not going to be able to scale. You're only able to scale when your products are priced high enough, because advertising is expensive or cheap, depending upon what your selling price is and what your margins look like and what your conversions look like. These 3 factors right here. If you can break even on day 0, you've essentially got an ATM where you spend $10,000 in the morning, get $50,000 in sales, which have, let's say, $15,000 in gross profit right there. So now you're growing your money every single day, and it won't be very long before you can get to the next set of problems to tackle before you can get on to the next level. Remember, you're not going to have a straight line growth to TAM levels under any circumstances, even if you find great product market fit. It just doesn't happen that way. It doesn't work that way. You're going to have a new set of problems to solve when you get to the next level, or even before you get to the next level. And then when you do get there, you're going to have a whole another set of problems to solve. You're going to have a new bottleneck every single week. And what you should be doing is debottlenecking your business every single week on the one core issue that truly matters for the week. Okay, and finally, people who have more money are more recession proof. They really don't get affected by unemployment statistics, because what's going to happen to them if they are fired from the job that they don't have, right? No one can fire a business owner. No one can really fire someone who's making money from the stock market or from Bitcoin or from gold or whatever, right? Their money is coming from hard assets, from real estate, for instance, and they don't really need to be worried about economic conditions. Now, economic conditions affect everyone. A rising tide raises all boats, and a falling tide brings all boats down. That's just inevitable. The question is, how big is the boat? Because tiny boats are going to be in the shallower dock, and massive boats are going to be in deep docks, even when they're docked, right? Deep yards. And you want the boats that are floating in deep yards, even when they are near the coast. Why? Because even a low tide is not going to get them to run aground. So, finally, we have this piece of news about silver soaring past $61 as supply crunch meets Fed rate cut. Understand that gold and silver are making new all-time highs these days, and that does not indicate that there's a lot of liquidity. In fact, it indicates the exact opposite. Gold and silver are considered to be risk-off assets. People buy lots of gold and silver when they are risk averse. They don't like the risk, right? So that's what we are seeing. Essentially, what that means for your business is it's a great time to get things set up, to get systems set up before you have that potential flood of new customers. You're not going to have that right now. You're going to have that when you have quantitative easing plus low interest rates plus stimulus checks. Remember, Warren Buffett says money in the wallet is like urine in bladder for most people. In other words, if they have the money, they're going to spend it. They're going to spend it, whether you can do it, whether you can take it from them or not, whether you can sell your products or services to them or not. Right now, they just don't have the money. Once they have discretionary income, once the vast majority of people have money to spend, then it's up to you to be able to triple, quadruple, 5x, 10x, 20x your business, because that's the time to do it. That's when everyone will be spending, and you don't get to blame the market. The cat decides what milk is good. The customer decides what product is good. If people are not buying from you, now is the time to figure out your marketing angles. Now is the time to figure out how to position your product or service well, how to reconfigure your offers so that they become extremely attractive and people start taking them when there is a lot of credit and cash and liquidity in the system, which it looks like might happen sooner rather than later. So that brings us to the end of today's stream, and I had great fun talking to you about the economic factors that are basically dominating the price of Bitcoin, the price of assets right now. And you have to notice that even now in quantitative tightening cycles, SPX has continued to make new all-time highs. Why? Because we are in a gold rush. AI is driving most of this gold rush, but we have new innovations all the time. And that goes on to show you the power of ingenuity over the long term, just investing in hard assets like Bitcoin and SPX. Those are the best assets because they're very liquid. Real estate, I've given my take on real estate. It depends upon demographics, and right now global demographics, population numbers and population growth rates are not looking too healthy. So even though there might be local exceptions to real estate on a whole not being able to keep up with the inflation, eventually you're going to find on the whole real estate is not going to be able to keep up with inflation simply because there's not enough demand. It's a product at the end of the day. Now people say Bitcoin and gold are not even products. They don't have any utility. Well, they do. They kind of do. Bitcoin stumbled around for a bit before it became known as the long-term store of value. But now institutions are buying in and retail's already bought in, and you're going to have more and more people adopting Bitcoin, and it eventually becomes kind of similar to gold. Eventually, the online version of gold, and eventually it only really keeps up with inflation, but that time is a long way away from us. Gold has been deeply buried inside the human psychology for thousands of years, where Bitcoin is relatively very new, and the global adoption still remains pretty low, well below 10%. Actually, we can check it out right now if you want with Perplexity. Let's ask Perplexity a question about percentage of people in the world own Bitcoin. One to 4%. So there's room for adoption. You're still an early adopter no matter what anyone tells you. People in crypto have had their mind completely fused by 500x to 5000x explosive gains in Dogecoin, for instance, and they think that's normal. It's not. As long-term business owners, as long-term investors, we know it's not. Right now, Bitcoin is still in its infancy, really, compared to gold. What you can compare that, right? What percentage of the world owns gold and or silver in some form? And this is going to be an eye-opening number for us. Order of tens of percents, not single digits. So this is potentially maybe even 50 to 70%. Even poor people in third world countries continue to own gold, maybe just as jewelry, maybe just as a store of value, maybe things that go up. You know, it's a wise decision they make through their lifetime to accumulate gold, right? Because they believe in it. Developed markets showing 10 to 12% of adults owning a gold or similar, and wealthier countries alone hundreds of millions of so it's a large minority of global population. Even though there are no statistics available for this, it's a large minority. Will Bitcoin ever get there? I think so, especially since its adoption is significantly easier than adopting gold. You can buy $10 worth of Bitcoin. Can you buy $10 worth of gold? Not really. Can you buy $10 worth of silver anymore? Not really. Silver is now what? $61 an ounce? Yeah, silver is now $61 an ounce. The last time I owned silver, it was at $20 an ounce. It fell down from, 27, 28 bucks down to $20. And now it's at $61 an ounce. It's really skyrocketed. That's a 3x in less than 5 years. So we have risk off markets, and yet markets have grown. Imagine what happens when we have risk on markets, when we have tailwinds, when we have low interest rates, when we have quantitative easing, when we have lots of liquidity, lots of cash, lots of credit for everyone. It's going to be a very short window, but you better position your business to take advantage of that right now. My name is Lakshya Behl. This is Behl's Business Broadcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and hit that like button. Leave a comment if you have a question or if you have something to add to what we discussed today. And tell us how your business is being affected by current liquidity conditions and how you're preparing it to grow when the liquidity conditions change and when we have tailwinds.